Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where we are. Yeah. Today is also another day for a monthly webinar from the African Organization for Standardization. I am Dr. Mojen Sengimana, the Secretary General of African Organization for Standardization. I will once more be your moderator to this session, which is a very good opportunity for Africa to discuss the Africa Parity policy. If you look at the Abuja Treaty in 1991, it was indicating that Africa should develop a common policy. A common policy, that is 1991, a common policy in standardization and measurement. I am happy that this year in 2021, after almost 30 years, we have the Africa Parity Policy approved by the African Union. Today, we will be discussing on the parity policy at continental level, at regional level, at national level, with the main objective to understand how effective are the quality infrastructure for sustainable development in Africa. We would like to see how the quality policy can facilitate trade, can facilitate the capacity building within the quality infrastructure, either at regional level, continental level, and at national level. How do we go about the AfCFTA agreement? Is the quality policy necessary when we have or started the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? We will be having different speakers that I will introduce timely when they are going to give their presentation. I would like to announce that we'll have interpretation in French and English. You can click on interpretation on your Zoom link. It's the globe that you see written interpretation. If you are a French speaker, you click on French. If you are English speaker, you click on English. And if you can hear both language as bilingual or multilingual, you can just put on off, then you will hear directly from the speakers. You can also use the chat to ask the questions. Any question related to the presentation, then I will follow up on those questions. Thank you very much once more for coming to this session. That is closing many of our series of webinars that we had the whole year. I would like at this juncture to ask Barbara Sigmund, who is the head of international cooperation at PTB, to share with us on quality policy, the evolution of Africa quality policy and why it matters in the context of the implementation of AfCFTA agreement and the promotion of intra-Africa trade. PTB has been involved for many years in developing the quality infrastructure on the continent. We would like to hear from you, Dr. Barbara.
Thank you very much, Imogen, and good afternoon to everybody listening us. It's an honor for me to speak here today for PTB. I'm going to share my my desktop now and hope it will work. Okay. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Great. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with the evolution of the Africa quality policy. It is, of course, a process being led by the African Union Commission and by Parity. And PTB provided technical support for it. And it was AfCFTA who kindly provided the financial support for that. The whole process was pretty fast, let me say that. And was highly participative. So there were 50 member states and 7 RECs that participated physically. During we had 2 consultative workshops. And the recognized RECs that were participating were COMESA, EIC, ECAS, ECOWAS, the SADC, and the UMA. And the first draft has been circulated in June 2019. To all the member states and the REC. And there were over 300 comments from the member states on this first draft. And the second one was circulated in August 2019. And again, there were over 300 comments on the second draft by 22 member states and 1 Parity institution. So in total, there were, well, about 640 comments on the draft. And the editing team made available to all the member states each comment, as well as how it was dealt with. And it was recorded for transparency purposes. And most comments were very satisfactorily incorporated. So finally, the African quality policy was approved on September the 3rd. Yes, so what is the structure about the African quality policy? Well, starting with the scope of the policy, giving a clear definition of the problems to be addressed by the policy, explaining the role of the private sector and other stakeholders, as well as the Parity institution, gives a systematic approach to show how is the alignment with international rules as the WTO rules, and giving recommendation and best practices. And using the guiding principles given in the UNIDO guide, so ownership, inclusiveness, coherence, optimization, and sustainability. It covered the 6 strategic pillars of the elements of the quality infrastructure, which is setting and implementing the African quality policy, standardization, technical regulatory framework, conformity assessment, accreditation, metrology, and awareness raising. And looking at the financing, the policy is giving funding options for the continental quality infrastructure programs and giving funding modalities for the implementation of the policy. Looking at the implementation arrangement, there are policy measures or activities that guides the formulation of the implementation plan. Then we have for monitoring and evaluation mechanisms, there are some indicators giving for measuring performance in the African quality policy implementation. And of course, there is a periodic review planned for the policy. So it should happen after 3 years the first time. And yes, of course, the policy is linked to the AfCFTA and other AU flagship programs. Okay. What's the relevance of the African quality policy for the AfCFTA implementation? And I mean, the AfCFTA agreement Annex 6, its technical barriers to trade, is institutionalized by the AQP. Quality infrastructure is a precondition for achieving competitiveness. So with that, we are eliminating technical barriers to trade. And to give some references in Annex 6, it's in Article 4 and in Article 6, Article 8 and 9, and Article 10, where also the Parity institutions are named. So as also AfSec, AfReg, AfriMed, and so on. I'm not going to read all that. You can see it just here on the slide. Okay, trying to stay in my time frame of 7 minutes, just saying a little bit about implementing of the quality policy. So it gives guidance on its implementation, as I just mentioned. of course, it needs to be implemented on the national level. And there are already, of course, a lot of national quality policies in different countries. And those existing ones maybe need to be aligned with the African quality policy. Some of them may need to be expanded. There are some national quality policies that are not adopted yet. So before they get adopted, they may need to be aligned with the African quality policy. So with that, I'd just like to end the presentation and with my very last slide with this very nice quote. And well, I'm pretty sure that there will be some questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. You clearly mentioned that this Africa Quality Policy was adopted on 3rd September this year. And you mentioned the 4 organizations under the TBT Annex 6 of the agreement of the AfCFTA. And mainly also one key that I captured is that the need of alignment at the national level. Yeah, as I introduced that PTB has been supporting countries in capacity building at the national level, in the regional economical communities. I guess the first question I would like to ask you before I look later on the participant question. As a supporter, a long-time supporter of the quality infrastructure on the continent, do you have a plan to help our countries in Africa to align the Africa quality policy at their national quality policy?
Yes, of course, we are quite proud to be a supporter of those initiatives. And well, for very specific support requests, we would need to check. But PTB is going to continue its support to the African quality policy on a continental level. Of course, also on the regional level, we have several projects with the REGs, also on a bilateral level with the member states. Which kind of support would be needed and which kind of support we could provide, maybe also under our Pan-African project, need to be checked in detail. But of course, there is always the possibility for PTB to come in and give some consultative and technical support, how to align a national quality, how to develop, and so on. So that would need to be checked in detail for specific requests, but in general, we are going to go on to support also alignment of quality policies.
Thank you very much. We will come back to you once again when we look at the participant question. Thank you for your presentation. Our next speaker is Bernardo, who is the officer under industrialization under UNIDO, mainly looking at digitalization, technology and innovation under the UNIDO different projects. As you know, UNIDO has been working in mainly developing countries, helping on not just on standardization matter, but also on industrialization. We will probably, to mention just a few, that is heavily involved in ECOWAS, where the first quality policy actually at regional level on the continent was developed. And we are much more aware that this quality policy under ECOWAS is being also implemented at the national level. Bernardo, you have the floor.
Hello, thank you, Hermogen, and good day to everyone. Hope you hear me well.
Yes, yes, very well.
So thank you so much for inviting UNIDO and myself to this webinar organized by you, Arso, and I'm very pleased to see already a couple of colleagues and friends in this webinar. So thank you so much. I will deliver a short presentation to you about indeed demystifying quality infrastructure on national and regional quality policy for sustainable development. Let me try and share my screen. You let me know if it works.
Yes, yes, it is
See
there.
if I could
You
put
can
it in.
just go on.
Oops.
Yeah, yes, the screenshot.
Sorry, but it doesn't seem to show on full. There's something is not working in full screen mode.
It's better to go on view. View on top. Okay. View.
I will go then on view here. Yes,
view,
indeed.
View.
Sorry. View.
View, yes.
And normally it is down there, but it's hidden by my by my banner for Zoom. So I need to put it a bit yes, to put it a bit differently. So view should be presentation view.
Go to fit windows. We see if it's gonna show just one slide. Fit window around next to Zoom.
Sorry, try to click F5.
Let's try here. Fit windows. Sorry, you say?
F5.
Okay, now it gets better, but I would still like to.
Yeah,
to show the. I'm very sorry for that. How can I hide the next slide? Then.
Maybe I can share, SG.
No, it's okay. He can't share. He can't share, but
you can share with me. But I'm sorry, I don't know what. It's a matter of. Okay, I see it on my second screen now, which is probably why it doesn't function well. I'm so sorry.
That's the reason. Yeah.
So you can share the second screen.
Maybe better.
Share the second screen.
Sorry for that, really. Come on. You see if it appears here. Okay, maybe this. But how do you see it now? Is it better?
Yes, it's there.
Okay, so sorry for this mishap. Yeah, I will try and catch up.
But it is too small, Bernard.
It's too small. But for me, it's full screen. So, okay, then I think I will better go back to the previous screen. Oh my goodness, where am I?
No, Bernardo, you can go ahead, then those participants can increase on their side. Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I think better that I stop from here. Okay, just let me just use this one and increase maybe the size of the slide. Try to hide this or keep it to the minimum. How do you see it?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
And I could maybe even hide this ribbon. Okay, would it be okay like this?
Yeah, please.
You compromise. I'm so sorry again. Hope it, okay, now it more or less works. Sorry, so let me start with a few definitions on the quality policy, because as you announced it, the core of my presentation will be about the UNIDO's quality policy trilogy, which is comprised of the guiding principles, technical guide, as well as a practical tool. So, but before, just quickly to refresh a bit on what is a quality policy. It's policy adopted at national or regional level to develop and sustain an efficient and effective quality infrastructure. And quality infrastructure is a system comprising the organizations and functionalities together with the policies, relevant legal and regulatory frameworks, principles, practices, and promotion campaigns used to support and enhance quality competitiveness, innovation, productivity, safety, health, and environmental soundness of goods, services, and processes. So the overall system that we are looking at, and for which we develop tools to guide the quality policy drafting and preparation. A few benefits of a quality policy development, it's that it enables a needs-based, dynamic, structured, inclusive, and forward-looking development of quality infrastructure, as well as conformity assessment services, through better governance, more coherence, increased inclusiveness, greater optimization of resources, and looking at the long-term sustainability of quality infrastructure, mainly through a demand-driven approach to development. And this, of course, of promoting sustaining economic development and as well as environmental and social well-being. So UNIDO has collaborated with the technical partners within the network of INET-QI, which is a network of international institutions, well-renowned, especially in the area of quality. You can see a few here on the right side. And the objective was to help stakeholders develop a quality policy and a robust quality infrastructure to promote national, regional, and international trade, environmental sustainability, and social well-being, as I said already. So the trilogy is composed of 3 documents, and we guided the development of these documents based on our huge experience in quality policy development and quality infrastructure implementation of technical assistance programs, mainly with 3 regional quality policies that we supported at UNIDO, and 26 national quality policies. So these are the publications that are based on research, on normative principles, based on a participatory approach. We are convening partners, and led to a detailed guide to technical cooperation in this area. The guiding principles, I will present them to you maybe in a better manner than the next slide, but we have retained 5 policy dimensions that were already mentioned by Barbara. These are coherence, governance, inclusiveness, optimization, and sustainability that should be appropriately addressed during the creation of each and every quality policy. They have been arranged in a nice sequence, and to allow also easy implementation. So this circle shows you each of the 5 principles and what they rely on. For instance, the governance one aims at ensuring government leadership, promote also transparent governance, and define clear roles and responsibilities. We need a policy that is optimized, also focused, evidence and risk-based, to follow an evidence and risk-based approach, is forward-looking and explores all regional economies of scale, considers also dynamics and evolution, of course. We want it to be coherent. It means aligning on international best practices, ensure also link to legal and regulatory coherence, to be also common and systemic, and separate the voluntary and mandatory work. On inclusiveness, of course, this is about engaging the private sector to maximum, engaging with consumers, listen to all stakeholders, and embrace diversity, including a gender balance in the process. And the last and not least, the sustainability pillar of the quality policy principle is to follow a demand-driven approach to ensure resource mobilization and to ensure its implementation purely, ensuring its financial sustainability, and also to make sure that it's sustainable and has to be reviewed, monitored over time. So if you want to learn more about the documents, they are available on the UNIDO Hub, Knowledge Hub website. So you can have a look at the various documents, the technical guide, and the practical tool. These are all publicly available. And of course, in the practical tool, we have also put there about some case stories on about best practices around the world. A few the steps for national quality policy development that you will find in the tools is quite straightforward. It's about doing the groundwork, conduct strategic planning, prepare the draft and build consensus, and then obtain approval, of course, and deploy the policy. So this is in a different presentation, the flow or the process of preparing the policies. Feel free to have a look at the documents. I will not spend more time. Yeah, these are examples of national quality policies that we have developed. There are many in Africa, by the way. And you know also of the one that we developed at regional level with ECOWAS, based on which you worked your African quality policy. So these are the good case stories, and if you need some examples, I could go deeper into example later on if need be. Everything is available then, as I said, on our website, on our dti-unido.org knowledge hub, and we provide also online training. So go and have a look at these, and we will happily receive your feedback afterward to see if it's fit for your needs and if at some point we can improve. Sorry. Thank you very much for your patience, and sorry again for this little glitch. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bernardo. Thank you. Those technological problems happen. Yeah. Don't worry about that. Yeah. When you look at one key part that's really captured very much my attention is about the guiding principles. You look at the governance where they should be defined roles and responsibilities. You look at the coherence where we have common issues on a systemic regulatory approach, aligned to international. You look at inclusiveness, where the private sector, so many times the private sector are forgotten, and listening to other stakeholders. Sustainability issue that has been very crucial on this quality infrastructure on our continent. Is it demand driven? Do you have even finance to support the whole quality infrastructure system? As you indicated, there is standardization component, there is metrology component, there is accreditation component, there is conformity assessment. All those are issues that if you need to be sustainable that you look at. But all this, you reach the level of optimization. How does it have an economical benefit, a regional economical benefit? What is the scale at that regional economical benefit? Then it comes to my mind to ask you, Bernardo, you need, I know you have a lot to do with industrialization. We are even now talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Do you see any link between the quality policy and industrialization of a country, of a region, and the continent as a whole? You are muted. You are muted.
Story of my COVID life. Yeah, thank you for the question, Hermogen. This is indeed we believe that there is a strong link between quality policy and industrialization. As a matter of fact, quality policy is a foundation for effective trade, competitiveness, and effective development of industries. It's because it's based on the principles that you mentioned. This is it is geared towards the not only economic development but also environmental and social well-being. I must say that industrialization objectives are actually at the core of the quality policy development. What do we aim at with the quality policy is to really have a strategy, have a vision first, and a strategy to guide regions, continents, or countries to put in place the best possible business environment related to compliance to the market requirements, to compliance to standards, compliance to technical regulations, allowing to eliminate the technical barriers to trade. So we put all this infrastructure in place in a way that is effective and efficient, so that they serve the industry, they serve the enterprises to become more competitive. So without this sound quality infrastructure, no enterprises could dream of exporting it in the region or outside. No enterprise would be able to prove the conformity of their products or services to the requirements. So this is obvious that it's a key element, a key driver to industrialization. And also, by the way, if you have a look, it's a very simple observation to make. If you look at the countries that have managed their industrialization process, most of them, not to say 100%, are countries that have a sound quality infrastructure and that develop policies and strategies to maintain this quality infrastructure and to make it up also to the opportunities and of the future, and geared towards future sustainable development. So I think this is what I can tell on the subject.
Thank you very much. I see there are so many questions coming in after your presentation, but I will look forward to see how probably you will respond to that at the end of other presenters. Thank you very much for being with us and sharing your thoughts on this topic. Thank you. Thank you, Bernardo. Our next speaker is Abia Sadek, who is the General Manager, Technical Relation and International Affairs at Egypt Organization of Standardization and Equality. She will discuss with us on the ARZO member state experience with the quality policy, the influence of national quality policy in the establishment and governance of a national quality infrastructure, experience from Egypt, Abias, you can share with us your thought. Thank you.
Okay, good day for you all. I would like first to appreciate my participation in such a crucial webinar today, through which I think ARSO offers a platform for African countries to learn from each other by sharing the national experiences in the context of developing national quality policies and the national practice in adapting national systems for implementation and governance of national quality infrastructure to the international best practice, considering, of course, the commitments regarding regional and international agreements. Also, I'd like to appreciate efforts tackled by ARSO in the context of developing strategic tools for inoculation and implementation of quality culture at the continental level. The most clear examples, the recently approved African quality policy and the guidelines developed by ARSO, seeking to raise awareness of African countries about measures related to quality infrastructure and its impact on smart implementation of Annex 6 WTO TPT, of course, of AfCFTA agreement. As you know all, the success of any policy depends on implementation. So I'd like to point out that there is no one-size-fits-all policy. The implementation of any policy depends on the context, political, social, and economic situation of each country. That is why I appreciate the challenging roles of all agencies in relevance to African quality infrastructure, REX, and all partners to develop consensus-based workable system in this context to facilitate implementation of AfCFTA. You will share my presentation, Dr. Imogeni, from your side, or?
You can share, you can share.
Okay.
If you have any technical issue, we can also share from our side.
Okay, I think I could share it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is it okay?
You can go and share full screen down in the corner on your right side. Yes. On full screen mode, down, right side down on the cup, the kind of a cup. Yeah.
Sorry for this inconvenience.
Or just press F5. F5.
Okay, F5.
You kindly allow us to share from our end.
Okay, okay. Is it okay right now?
Yes, it's okay now. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to present today the quality infrastructure and the issue of technical regulation and the Egyptian experience in this regard. I don't know why it is not responding. Okay, if you could, okay. I think you are sharing from your partner now, yes? As per the Egypt's vision for 2030 that was developed in 2016 by the Egyptian government, And this vision consists of 8 main national goals to be met by 2030, which are in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Strategy for Africa, of course, 2063. And in light of this vision, the most 3 pillars that have been focused on to go through its development is the economic, social, and environmental pillars. So in this context, there is a number of axes in the new updated version in the these three dimensions of the strategy, which one of them is quality of life, strong economy, and sustainable environment. And as you know, the quality policies and agendas and plans in multiple sectors have been developed to achieve the goal regarding the economic development and environmental sustainability. Those sectors are industry, environment, health, education, trade, and domestic market enhancement also. Second, please. Next, please. I'm not sharing from my part right now. Okay. For the element of the national quality infrastructure, as you know, there is technical regulations, then standardization and conformity assessment, accreditation, metrology, and market surveillance. The pillars that I'm happy to screen them to be included in the African quality policies that you have circulate via email within the last 2 days. And next, please. This slide is representing the world versus national quality infrastructure systems. And as you see, you will find that we have the different level. The level of market and consumers, which are the main target of all economies, to have enhanced markets, fair trades, and fair and good quality of consumers, of goods and services presented to consumers, as well as protecting health, safety, and environment. The production and services are mainly developed by the industries, companies, and organizations. So, and then there is the tool that govern this level of quality presented to the goods and services in the market, which lies first in technical regulatory framework and the standardization activities at all levels regarding management system, product quality, even the electric issues, IEC means, and the also the ITU relevant standards. At the level of accreditation and precision of measurements, we have all the level of the trust gained from the national metrology institutes and national accreditation bodies, and the level they gain of recognition at international and regional levels, and of course via the peer assessment and the recognition, multi recognition agreements they go through. Next, please. Okay, here is a simple illustration of the pillars of national quality infrastructure in Egypt. You will find the standardization, which tackled by EOS, and also we have our partners from the National Mirror Committee of IEC and National Mirror Committee of ITU, where we are all together work in developing the national Egyptian standards through the best practice adopted by EOS in the area of standardization for different products, services, and management systems. Also, there is the level of conformity assessment, which include testing and inspection activities, certification, and okay. certification and industrial calibration, you will find that there is multiple authorities working underneath each of these or working in the area of these activities. Some of them are governmental entities, some others are none, where there is recognition of and recognition of the certificates delivered from internationally recognized third parties who are accredited in the context of their working scope. The accreditation also, we have the National Accreditation Council, which is the sole entity working for ensuring the competency of the facilities and institutions working in the area of management system certification, product certification, testing laboratories, inspection for services, and also for certification of personnel. EJAC get the recognition at international level from ILAC, IF, and also from AFRAC and ARAC at the regional level. Also, you'll find the market surveillance pillar that is covered by the internal trade sector, which have the direct supervision of the Egyptian, the goods and services delivered in the Egyptian market. Also, there is the National Control Authority, which develops some kind of pre-market surveillance control, or pre-market surveillance activity. And also we have the Consumer Protection Agency, which hears the voices of consumers and develop deliver their feedback or escalate the analysis regarding the consumer customer complaints and consumer feedback regarding the level of quality and safety of goods and services delivered in the Egyptian market. Next, please. Hi. Next slide, please. Okay, as per the technical regulatory authorities in Egypt, we have currently, we have the National Quality Council, which was the council established in 2010 and have some modification on its structure in 2015. But currently, they are also, it is also subjected to additional modification in its structure as per the current regulatory framework in Egypt, where we have the at the level of drug and pharmaceutics, we have a recently developed the Egyptian Drug Authority, which carry the responsibility of regulating and the governance of pharmaceutical sector. Also, we have the National Egyptian Food Safety Authority that carry the same role in the context of food safety. Also, the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Authority, which developed all regulation related to air, soil, and environment quality, and also the tackle the matters related to climate change and how to cope with the challenges accompanied with climate change issues. For the sake of the plant and animal quarantine and related issues, we have the Ministry of Agriculture. All of those representing the primary stakeholder of implementing the national quality policy as per each scope functioning for these entities, where you will find most of them develop technical regulations in the context of ministerial decrees or regulatory decrees that have an impact on the insurance of the level of quality and safety of products and services delivered in the Egyptian market. And also work on enhancement of domestic market practices. In this context, I'd like also to focus on the National Quality Council responsibility, which is setting policies and strategies regarding to national quality infrastructure elements, and amending them as per the amended situation at the strategic level, and also follow up the implementation of these strategies and policies with the interested parties at the national level. So next, please. Okay, next slide. As per the practice of regulatory impact assessment, I'd like also to share with you some thoughts regarding the incorporation of the procedure of regulatory impact assessment while developing Egyptian technical regulation from different regulatory institutes. The main practices are identifying the need for developing a new technical regulation, and then benchmarking study to assess the situation and this level of need and the best practice, and then develop technical regulation draft, then consultate and communicate with all the stakeholders, then the adoption of technical regulation, and for the sake of transparency, publication in the official gazette and WTO TPT committee notification. I'd like also to highlight for the element regarding the inclusiveness of medium and small and micro enterprises in the development of the development and the adoption of the national quality policy, where we had to hear their voices regarding the capacity building needs at their size, and also to consider the impact of any regulatory framework and the quality policies adopted on their scope of work and on their activity. Okay, thank you all, and I hope that you have a comprehensive overview on the experience of Egypt in this context. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Bia, for your presentation and sharing the experience of Egypt. I see so often we like to see market surveillance as part of the whole system on quality policy. I see that in Egypt, the market surveillance actually has been taken care of. And I see the good example on technical regulation, where you have different stakeholders, Ministry of Agriculture and others as part of the implementers. One question, you heard that there is the Africa quality policy that was adopted on 3rd September by African Union. How do you intend to align? Maybe the first question, you have a quality policy in Egypt.
Okay, it is,
if you have.
Yes, as I mentioned, there's quality policy, but in different scopes of work as per the context of each element. Of course, there is a horizontal platform govern them all, but you will find the different terminologies, where in pharmaceutics it will be handled in a specific way, in food, in agriculture, in agro-food, in electric supply. Also, it will be handled in their own terminology. But there is a unified platform that governs them all.
Yeah, how now, as now we have an African quality policy, as I mentioned in my introduction, these quality policies have been requested by our head of state in 1991 from the Abuja Treaty. Now we have it. After 30 years, we have it. How do you intend to align it with what you have in Egypt?
Okay, again, I think as the national body that represent Egypt in the context of work with ARSO, and as per your appreciated role to facilitate the implementation of AfCFTA, and one of its major tools is to develop the policy and follow up its implementation in the member states. I think the first point that our first steps that we had to tackle with is to circulate this policy to all interested and stakeholders and players in the industrialization and the trade sectors. That is to be informed with this policy and the importance of alignment with in a way to facilitate trade with the African countries. And also, I think it is not very far away from our perspectives at national level. So I think that will be an ease of inclusiveness of the spirit and of this policy within the main frame of the national policies. And also, I think after circulation, we need to have some extensive discussions and getting feedback from those stakeholders, and of course escalated to your kind party to be able to have a clear vision and a transparent image about the absorption of this policy in the at the national level, and to be considered in the context of regional trade.
Thank you very much, Abia. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I like that circulation to stakeholders would be very key, and gather more what they want to see happening at the national level. Thank you very much.
Inclusiveness is the sole way for ensure smart implementation of any policy or regulation. I think is the key.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot. Yeah. Our next speaker is Chinyere. Yeah. Chinyere, if you look at, we are now coming from the Maghrebian Ummah moving to ECOWAS. We have Chinyere Bono, who is from SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria. She's the director for standard development. She has more than 30 experience in equality infrastructure. She will be presenting once again now the influence of national quality policy in establishing and governance of national quality policy. The experience now in Nigeria. Knowing that Nigeria is part of the ECOWAS, and only ECOWAS among the 8 regional economic communities accepted by the African Union is the only regional economic community that's already have a quality policy. Chinyere. You are able to share?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So can you see my screen?
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I would like to say good day, good morning to all the participants here. I have just been introduced. I'm actually I exited just last week, Friday. I'm the immediate past director of standards of SON. But I have come here to give the Nigerian experience concerning the national quality policy, how it was established, and where we are today with its implementation. The Nigerian experience, I would like to say that in December 2013, Nigeria made a commitment to the WTO by signing the, sorry, please, I need to, okay. All right, sorry about that short break. And so we made that commitment of at the 9th Ministerial Conference in Indonesia to agree to sign the WTO trade facilitation, because as at that time, we knew that we were needed to do that in order to boost Nigerians' emergence as at that time as the largest economy in Africa. And also by that time too, Nigeria had a vision 2020, which intent was to make Nigeria one of the 20 top economies in the country and to boost Nigerian economy. So realizing its new structure, new status as the largest economy in Nigeria, and the need to also meet the requirements of trade on environment and health and safety of consumers, Nigeria thus saw the need for the development of a national quality policy that would enhance Nigeria's reputation as a provider of quality products and services in the global market. And so with that need, that urgent need, the then Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment, with the support from the European Union under the United Nations, that's the UNIDO project, and then the Standards Organization of Nigeria as a government agency that had an already very good structure on ground, started the establishment of a national quality policy that would also have an implementation plan. And so on the 27th of January 2014, the minister then inaugurated the National Steering Committee that would carry out this task of establishing or producing a national quality policy for Nigeria. And this committee was given these following terms of reference, which are to review and harmonize existing quality policies in Nigeria, to prepare a draft national quality policy that is going to be acceptable to all the relevant stakeholders, and finally to support the approval and the implementation of this national quality policy. And so with that, the steering committee, which I was going forward referred to as the NSC, was now classified, divided into subcommittees in order to capture all the essence as relates to quality infrastructure in Nigeria. And so these 7 committees were the committees on standards, the committees on committee on metrology, committee on accreditation, committee on conformity assessment, which includes the testing laboratories, committee on communication, which is going to also be needed as the quality policy is being established, and then the National Technical Regulations Committee, and then the budget and planning, because of the implementation plan needed to also take care of the finances, apart from the human resources as well. The financial resources was also needed. So based on these 7 committees, with SON as the then secretariat of this National Steering Committee, the committee started its work and had several meetings at both the subcommittee level and at the plenary as the National Steering Committee. And so with that, following all the necessary international best practice, we made particular use of UNIDO documents, particularly this particular document on the guiding principles when you're developing quality policy that guided us very well. And with the support of UNIDO, but by the way, this was a project under the UNIDO. So we had strong support from the UNIDO group, and we were able to come up with the national quality, the draft national quality policy, making sure that all the principles of coherence, the ownership, the governance, and every other thing, the inclusiveness, because we made sure that all the relevant stakeholders were involved in the development of this national quality policy. So with that, we came up with a draft policy that was then presented to the relevant stakeholders for validation through national workshops, which we held at various locations in the country. We had to travel from one aspect of the country, knowing that Nigeria is quite a huge country. We moved from one place to the other because we wanted every stakeholder to have a say in the establishment of this national quality policy. And with that, we were able to do presentation using workshops. And knowing the importance of our African experts, we also made sure that our international experts from Africa participated and provided us with some technical support, particularly during the validation of this process and the review of the draft quality after it was established. So the draft national quality policy was then thereafter presented to the Federal Executive Council of Nigeria for approval after due consideration. And so having taken so many years after, but I think it's about 7 years after, that is in February this year, the National Quality Policy of Nigeria was finally approved by the Federal Executive Council and was now ready for implementation in the country. And so with that, it was forwarded to the appropriate ministry, which is the Ministry of Trade, of Industry, Trade and Investment, to facilitate its implementation. Currently, this particular drafts, this document is currently being worked on at this Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment to develop the structures, working on the structures to ensure very effective implementation when the implementation takes off. So that is the current status of what we have, and we are making sure that it will take off as soon as possible. Particularly now with the approval of the African Quality Policy, this is the best time for us to look at both documents now and align. So things that we learned along the line, since it is still under, still yet to be implemented, but it is approved for implementation, and implementation is going to take off very soon. In the course of developing these, what could this be? In the course of developing these national quality policy, we ensured very strong stakeholders engagement. There was a lot of inclusiveness in line with the guiding principles that we had. And we made sure that both the public and the private sectors, even including consumers, were fully engaged in the course of developing it. Also, we ensured there was a lot of coherence, aligning all the regulatory framework that we have on ground and the laws and regulations that were in place. We made sure there is consistency, and so we ensured that consistency in the development of these documents. And to also make sure that we had demand-driven approach, we've noticed in the course of developing this, there were a lot of things that we needed actually to also put in place to make the implementation of the document at the end of the day very easy. So the idea of developing a national standardization strategy that will be demand-driven and that would also take care of the needs of the immediate needs of the stakeholders was also, that idea came up, and then we ensured that that was done. And I would like to announce to you that we had to develop a national standardization strategy that took off in 2020. And this is the second year of the implementation of this strategy for Nigeria. These were also offshoots from the experience we have gained while we were developing the Nigerian National Quality Policy. In the course of also developing this thing, it was observed that there were a lot of overlaps in the mandates, especially with the regulatory agencies in Nigeria. And so it brought about the need for us to have very defined responsibility, which we of course know that national quality policy usually takes care of, because those are one of the main issues that are usually considered in developing the national quality policy. And so we made sure that all these overlaps were taken care of, so that there would not be two people doing the same things all over and over again. So responsibilities were actually defined for both the public and the private sectors. And so in the course of also doing that, most of the people who were participating were able to have that awareness of their own defined roles in the national quality policy. And at that time, we didn't have a national accreditation body. And it was along the line, UNIDO also engaged an expert to make sure that the Nigerian National Accreditation Service was birthed. So today, we have the Nigerian National Accreditation Service, known as NINAS. And so it made sure that all the relevant quality infrastructures are in place and will be implemented in the course of implementing the national quality policy. And so with this national quality policy, Nigeria is now well positioned because of the experiences learned and actions that we have taken so far, awaiting the implementation of these documents. Nigeria is well positioned to take advantage of the synergy arising from the definition of roles in the national quality policy to meet the quality and other requirements for trading under the AfCFTA. Now with AfCFTA, we have no choice than to make sure that we implement our national quality policy and then make sure that we participate. That would also ensure that we participate actively in the AfCFTA, in the African Continental Free Trade Area. So on that note, I've been able to let you know that Nigeria had a very nice experience developing our national quality policy, and we are glad that the quality policy has been approved and is ready for implementation, and we know that the implementation is taking off very soon. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Chinyere. Actually, you mentioned it from 2014 to 2021, 7 years. Yeah, I was thinking that 30 years we took from 1991 to have a Africa quality policy. That is a really big gap. Looking at the 30 years, but even at national level, 7 years, 7 years to have a quality policy. And I hear that probably you had so many challenges being a huge economy on our continent and different stakeholders. The question that came to me, it's good that you presented, you have shown us that you are aligned to the guiding principles that from UNIDO. But I am also aware that there is an approved quality policy at ECOWAS level. Yeah. Now we have an African quality policy. What are the steps are you going to take to align already what was approved? It's just February. Yeah. I am aware that the African Equality Policy is very well in line with what ECOWAS has. Yeah. What are you going to do?
All right, thank you very much. Maybe I forgot to mention that the ECOWAS Quality Policy was our base document, was our source document. It was used in total because it was after the approval of the ECOWAS ECOWAS Quality Policy that we developed ours. So maybe because it was just the base documents that we used, I didn't really remember to mention that. So now, to your question, well, we already have a structure in place for adopting even African standards in the first place. And so, and having that knowledge and coming from the background that even the African Quality Policy is based on the ECOWAS quality policy, which we base our own national quality policy. I want to know that and believe that even the differences wouldn't really be much. So what we're going to be doing is to review them and align whatever it is, align our national quality policy with the African quality policy. And that will be done with very strong stakeholders engagement, just like we have structures in place, I said, when it comes to adoption of standards. This wouldn't be a difference. All we'll make sure is that we will have to call our stakeholders, circulate for them, introduce to them, because now we have received the listing from you in the last 2 days from the ASO Central Secretariat. The African Quality Policy is a matter of just trying to engage the stakeholders, let them know that there's the African Quality Policy in the first place, and then put the quality policy to their own review and make sure that we get all the necessary information. We make sure that everyone has a say in it. And that means we are going to now put the two documents together and align them together to make sure that they are one, because that will ensure our smooth participation in the African Continental Free Trade Area. So we'll ensure strong stakeholders engagement to make sure we get that and get their view back. Thank you.
Thank you. I was worried about the ECOWAS quality policy. Now you say it clearly, it's the one that you use. I was worried that if you didn't use it, probably the use of the African quality policy is gonna be difficult. Now my worry are alleviated.
Yeah. Are you still there?
Question on the chat? Yeah, please also feel free to reply on some of the question on the chat. Yeah, then even if I will come back to these questions.
Can I answer the one from Natalie?
Thank you very much for sharing. Yes, okay. You can respond to that one. Meanwhile, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Dr. Sadvi. Dr. Sadvi Bison, who is the executive for Standard Division in South African Bureau of Standard. He has so many years of in standardization to us the experience of South Africa, looking at the influence of national quality in the establishment and governance of national quality infrastructure, the role of South Africa. Dr. Sadvi.
Thank you, Emma-Jean, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this very important topic. I'm just trying to attempt to share my presentation. Let's just see. So if you could confirm that you could see my presentation, I'd really appreciate it.
Yes, now we can see.
Is it on presentation mode?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, I think it's coming through. Just confirm if you can see it. I could see it on presentation mode on my side.
Is yet to show on presentation mode.
Not yet.
Is it still traveling the skies? So.
All right, on my side, it's showing that it's on presentation mode. Let me try and I think I'm experiencing the same troubleshoot that Bernard Bauer was experiencing. So it's unfortunate.
I'm so glad, guys, that you didn't let me alone. Thank you.
Right. I'm not too sure what the problem is because I stopped sharing and I.
Or we can share from our side.
Let me try once more. And
okay. We can see it. Yeah.
Okay, but it's not on presentation mode. Is it okay that I present in this format?
It is okay. On presentation mode. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Emma-Jean, and thank you, colleagues. It's certainly a great pleasure to talk a bit about the South African experience around the quality infrastructure and more importantly, on support for the African quality policy. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So just to give you a legislative mandate of the quality infrastructure institutions in South Africa, I must admit, firstly, that there is no national quality policy that has been established, but suffice to say that we have a very important directorate within the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition that is ultimately provides the governance and oversight of all quality infrastructure institutions in South Africa. This directorate is referred to the SQUAM Directorate, Standardization, Quality Assurance, Accreditation, and Metrology. And the four institutions, which are the key important institutions as part of the QI that report directly through to this directorate is SABS, NRCS, SANAS, and NAMISA. Just a brief overview on these four entities. The South African Bureau of Standards is the standards body in South Africa. It is 76 years young, and it's established through the Standards Acts of 2008. The initial act was in 1945. There's three key areas of importance within this, the national mandate of SABS. One is to develop, promote, and maintain South African national standards. The second is to promote quality with respect to products, processes, commodities, and services. And the third being the provision of conformity assessment services. We also have a regulatory authority, one of many regulatory authorities within the South African regulatory framework. This regulatory authority is referred to NRCS, It was established in 2008, and initially it was within the SABS, and due to the issues of conflict of interest, the regulatory authority was certainly taken out of the National Standards Body's mandate. The third entity is SANAS, which we all know is an accreditation body. SANAS was established through an Accreditation and Conformity Assessment, Calibration and GLP Act, Act 19 of 2006. And quite rightly, as a national accreditation body, they are responsible to make sure that there's formal recognition of organizations to demonstrate competencies to conduct specific tasks like certification, laboratory services, inspection services, and the like. And last but not least, NAMISA, which is the Metrology Institute of South Africa, again established by an act of Parliament, and it's the Act of Measurement Units and Measurement Standards Act, and it's the Act 18 of 2006. And it underpins the testing and calibration through measurement accuracy and measurement traceability. I did mention, despite not having a national quality policy, this directorate
Sorry to interrupt. You haven't moved the slide. We are only seeing the first slide.
My apology. Can you see the second slide?
Wait. It's not coming through.
Strange that it's
I think it's frozen on the first slide.
Okay, so let me try and do this once more.
I hope it's not COVID affecting the slides. Maybe a new virus called.
Okay, can you confirm that?
Yeah,
it's
now
through?
we are seeing. Okay. Thank you.
Apology, I had two screens that were open at the same time. Okay, so apology for that. I'm not going to go to the second slide, but I think it just gives you a highlight, as I mentioned, on the various portfolios of the quality infrastructure institutions and their mandates, SABS, NRCS, which is, as I mentioned, one of the many regulators in South Africa, SANAS and NAMISA. I also mentioned that despite the national quality policy, the directorate, which is the SQUAM directorate of DTIC, plays a very important role in providing the legislative mandate, ensuring that we create strategic objectives aligned to national policy directives, ensuring that we have institutional strategies, there's an effective implementation of coordination between the various quality infrastructure institutions, and there's an element of monitoring and evaluation as well. So the ultimate custodian in terms of ensuring that technical infrastructure institutions play an important role in the efficient functioning of the economy is within this directorate. So the next slide, you might feel that it is quite busy, but I thought it was important, and it's aligned to our colleague from Egypt, Ms. Abia Sadek, who gave a very similar representation in her presentation as well. This slide provides a interaction, a cooperation representation of the various quality infrastructure institutions. The first being, and it's highlighted, as you see, the National Standards Body, and that's the SABS. And basically the SABS is, as I mentioned earlier on, responsible for the development of national standards. We currently have a collection or a catalog of more than 7,500 South African national standards. Quite a significant portion of these national standards are adoptions from ISO and IEC, which is the International Standards Body. So how does this relate to NAMISA? NAMISA plays a very fundamental role as a metrology institute in South Africa by providing the very definition of units as required to be input towards technical requirements in our standards. So this base information comes through from NAMISA to the National Standards Body, and then it's articulated as a national standard. Subsequent to that, many of our national standards are taken up and implemented by the National Accreditation Body, SANAS. And these are all the standards, majority of which are international standards adopted by SABS, and these are accreditation body standards. The role of SANAS, as pointed out, is to make sure that there is adequate capacity, resources, and infrastructure of conformity assessment bodies to ensure that they are aligned to these standards. And these conformity assessment bodies include areas or scope of work, which could be certification, it could be inspection, it could be testing laboratories, calibration laboratories as well. SABS is one of the many players in the marketplace that provide conformity assessment services in South Africa. There are a wide variety of certification bodies, testing laboratories, inspection bodies, and calibration bodies that play this voluntary role in the marketplace. In addition to that, there's a wide variety of accreditation requirements, and these are to the left of the right of the representation, which talks to the conformity assessment services and the standards that are related, accreditation standards that are related to that. So how these standards are implemented is that, firstly, you get a self-regulatory mechanism whereby there's a voluntary uptake of these national standards by industry. It could be public sector industries, SMMEs, multinational industries as well, that take up these standards, implement that, and basically results in the provision of good quality products and services into the marketplace. Once there is an issue regarding health and safety in the marketplace, and once there is probably a recognition that there is a market failure of a product or a service in the marketplace, then a regulator comes in. And the regulator in this case, which is part of the quality infrastructure institutions, is NRCS. NRCS works very closely with the SABS, actually sits in literally all of our relevant technical committees and adopts all the national standards which they see that will provide a regulatory objective in the marketplace. And that's the close collaboration that we have between the NRCS as a regulator and the national standards body. And this is an element of market surveillance that comes through as well on a mandatory basis. And certainly from a consumer perspective and general public, national standards are responsible to make sure that minimum requirements in terms of safety, health, and environmental protection is adhered to in the marketplace as in terms of these voluntary requirements in the standards. To the left of the representation, you'll see a few of the certification body standards. Quite a number of them are, it's basically our bread and butter in terms of what we certify, and a large number of certification bodies certify to these standards as well. Again, they're all internationally based standards. And that is the beauty about a quality infrastructure institutions. How do you manage and maintain an alignment between national, regional, and international quality infrastructure institutions and requirements as well? So I'm going to move on to this alignment that I was talking about. And this is a representation of, from a South African perspective, of the 4 institutions that I mentioned, which is NAMISA, SANAS, SABS, and the IEC representative from South Africa is the South African National Committee of the IEC, which is the committee of the SABS anyway, but they're responsible for participation in electrotechnical standardization processes. Once again, the DTI is the shareholder, ultimately responsible for this mandate. You would see that the regulator is not part of this mainstream as identified in the representation. We talk specifically around the voluntary implementation of quality infrastructure institutions that we have at our disposal. So if from a national level, it goes on to a sub-regional level. And the sub-regional level, we've got SADC MET, we've got SADC Cooperation in Accreditation, SADC STAN, and SADC STAN has a representation in 2 areas whereby it's electrotechnical sector and thereafter every other standard outside of the electrotechnical sector. But moving ahead, which is more important around the African Continental Free Trade Area and the agreement and the annexes, I think we all appreciate, and it has been mentioned on numerous occasions, the reference to the African Continental Free Trade Area, Annex 6, Articles 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All of them addresses elements of metrology, accreditation, standardization, conformity assessments, as well as regulatory technical regulations as well. And this is where the Pan-African quality infrastructure comes into important play. And you can see ARSO, AfCFTA are the key institutions around development of national standards, AfRec around accreditation, and AfriMets around the scope of work around metrology. And thereafter, you see an international alignment as well. And these organizations, so NAMISA has a representation sub-regionally, has a representation regionally, has a representation internationally. And this is how international best practice should be articulated. Alignment from a national perspective through to a sub-regional perspective, through to a regional perspective, and international alignment as well. There is a significant amount of work that's happening amongst these bodies at a national level, whereby we implement capacity building initiatives. There's sharing of information between various bodies, like bodies within our various portfolios and work. And there's one important element is about ensuring that there's influence, there's governance and leadership throughout the entire platform of portfolios from regional to international bodies as well. And this is what we articulate as good practice from a national perspective, emulating international best practices in a quality infrastructure institution. So this is my final slide, and this some take-home messages. There needs to be a very good alignment of quality infrastructure institutional objectives to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We can't rule the UN SDGs out. We've spoken a lot about UN SDGs. The recent World Standards Day revolved around United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I think every country in their own right have goals, programs, and projects aligned to UN SDGs 2030. And that should also be an all-encompassing within the national quality policy as well. It's certainly articulated to an extent in the African quality policy, but UN SDGs should be an instrumental pillar in developing national quality policies as well. Quality infrastructure mandates have to be coherent. The various entities, in order for them to be efficient, effective, and drive cooperation in addressing sustainability objectives. And these objectives are wide, revolving over a wide variety of pillars, including industrialization ambitions, as was alluded to earlier by our colleague Bernard Bau, health and safety and environmental protection, and driving socioeconomic priorities from a national perspective as well. There has to be a very active participation and contribution, including influence, at national, regional, and international quality infrastructure forums. Most of the times, we in the African continent are takers of ideas, of solutions, of tools. We need to transcend that and start becoming makers of these tools, because I think we have the uniqueness that we can offer to the world around particular perspectives that we have and particular challenges around climatic issues, around technological issues, as well as geographical differences that we portray within the African continent. So we must be courageous in transcending these solutions to international level as well, and influence international level. So the establishment of national quality policy, and what is the rationale thereof, and why should we be doing it? It certainly articulates the mandates of the quality infrastructure institutions. It allows for a significant amount of interrelationships that we need to address. Chinyere mentioned that as well, and supports the efficient functioning of our economies. It enhances competitiveness, addresses socioeconomic priorities, and certainly the ultimate objective is to improve the quality of our life of citizens in the African continent. We have to have a significant element of African quality alignment to the African quality policy, which certainly supports the African continental free trade area to the efficient movement of goods and services within the continent. And last but not least, I think this is quite pivotal to any culture from a national perspective. We need to create a culture of quality in products, services, and personnel. And this is certainly aligned to international best practice. Chairperson, I think I'll stop there. That's my last slide. Thank you for the opportunity, and looking forward for some questions and engagements. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sadri, for the very good presentation. Once again, we are now in SADC. We are in the southern part from West Africa. I would like, you are in the process at the South African level of developing a national quality policy. As now we have already Africa quality policy. Yeah. What are you going to do?
So it's a very important question. You're quite right. So we've been talking about developing a national quality policy for a good couple of years now. And I think the timely publication of the African quality policy is very important because it prevents us from going and revising and reviewing maybe an existing national quality policy, which Nigeria in their good efforts needs to do as well. So and having looked at the length and the breadth of the African quality policy, there is nothing that we will eliminate from alignment to the African quality policy. It addresses United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It addresses the African agenda of industrialization. It addresses all the key elements. I think there's 6 or 7 elements, including all the quality infrastructure institutions that are in there. And it addresses best practices as well. So we certainly will, this African quality policy will be a base document for engagement. And you would know that it's driven by it's a public policy driven by the Department of Trade and Industry. And we are engaging and will continue to engage to finally establish the national quality policy as we have been looking forward to finalize. And I think the first step is to take the draft or the final document, draft and align that to a proposed national quality policy initiative, go through an extensive stakeholder engagement and finalize ours. I think in the coming months, with our rigorous engagement with the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition and various other stakeholders, we'll be able to come up with a draft. And because it's very important, national quality infrastructure, including, which is underpinned by the national quality policy aligned to the African Continental Free Trade Area, is very important to drive the ambitious objectives that we seek to achieve in the movement of goods and services within the African continent. So certainly we are going to be working quite rigorously to establish a national quality policy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sadri. I want directly to come back to you on some of the questions I see on the chart. One is directly addressed to you, that's why NRSCS does not report to the department responsible for regulator at the DTI.
So it does. The NRCS, so the SABS prior to 2008 had regulatory authorities within it. We have broken that up. Oh, sorry, I think I've misunderstood the question. So you're referring to the slide. So those regulatory authorities have nothing to do with the technical infrastructure in terms of technical requirements for products and services. It's other regulatory requirements that the Department of Trade and Industry is maintaining around tariffs and stuff like that, which needs to be managed at a different portfolio. Because the NRCS complements the quality infrastructure institutions, this is why they've been put in and maintained. And I don't think this will change. It will be maintained in supporting the ambitions of the quality infrastructure institutions. Similarly, because of the scope of work that the NRCS does, which is aligned to the quality infrastructure institutions. Hemogene, I think you're mute.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sadri. Chinyere, one key question that I saw on the chart that I want to address to you is that you have now a quality policy. Someone was asking how demand-driven it was. Yeah. For others to understand how demand-driven it was. I guess within 7 years of experience of developing since 2014 to 2021, how demand-driven it was.
Well, I think, thank you for the question. I think I also mentioned it there because in the course of developing the quality policy, we realized there was a lot of issues. That was actually why it took so long, because certain things needed to be defined and everybody needed to have their roles defined. And so it was actually demand driven in the sense that, number one, the federal government had a vision that had to say that it wanted Nigeria to be one of the top 20 economies in the world. Not just that, wanted to make sure that whatever it is that is produced from this country or is developed in this country is of quality, either our services or our products that are manufactured. So they had an urge, and that was the main demand, that was the main push, the main urge to get the national quality policy done. Then by the time we started having meetings with all the relevant stakeholders, all those who have a role to play either in standards development, in accreditation, in conformity assessment and all that, we realized there were a lot of needs on ground, but there were a lot of convergence and overlaps. And so it was also defined at that level. Everybody got to know their levels and what they are supposed to do. And that was what came out with so many of there were a lot of things that came up after and the cost of development of that, like the Nigerian National Development, the Nigerian Standardization Strategy that was developed. We realized that the stakeholders had needs and we needed to prioritize their needs to be able to meet those needs. So that was part of it. Also with the accreditation, we didn't have any accreditation body on ground. And there was need for that if we need to have a national quality policy that will be implemented. And so we birthed, through the help of UNIDO 2, we had the Nigerian National Accreditation Service that is existing now and doing its job, basically doing everything that it's supposed to do. So everything that we did was based on the demand on ground. And those demands were actually met. We made sure that that was one important thing. You know, because of the observation or the realization that there were a lot of overlaps, we needed to define those overlaps, because I saw a question saying, is it going to dissolve this? Is it going to dissolve that? By the end of the day, the document has specified who does what, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Within the implementation plan, it has attached an implementation plan onto it. So that's what we did. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Certainly gave some takeaway message. I would like now your takeaway message from this webinar, this discussion.
Oh, for me?
Yes.
Yes, for me. One. Yeah. Just one. Well, yes. I am so happy. I'm happy about the approval of the African quality policy, because that is the way we need to converge at a level. And so my takeaway message is that now is in existence. Those who have national quality policy should endeavor to align their quality policy to the African quality policy. And those who do not have, like South Africa, as they work on it, make sure that they aligned right from the beginning to the African quality policy, because that is the only way we can trade within each other and have Africa highly industrialized. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chinyere. Abia, Sadek, there was a question on the chat that I would like to ask you if you can give us your insight. How the micro and small and medium enterprises are bigger players in this quality policy.
Okay. In Egypt, there is a agency, supreme agency, handling all issues related or responsible for all issues related to medium, small, and micro enterprises. And this agency tackles issues related to their training, their support, financial and technical support. So I think one of the major impact of the presence of such an agency is to hear the voices and needs of this sector of industry, and they are already involved in the National Quality Council, and they will be one of the key stakeholders that we are going to circulate the African quality policy to them to be able to endorse it and absorb its content and see how far it could be aligned with our national system. And I have one additional recommendation for you, Hermogene, at the level of ARSO, that is to handle the African quality policy along with the cooperation of the development partners in that support ARSO in their context, to handle this African quality policy at two levels. First is technical level by develop or deliver extensive periodic training sessions for raising capacity of African member states, even those who are non-member states. That is to be able to absorb and have the aware enough about this strategic document, which is African quality policy, and how, what is its context, how it could be translated in the future of the industry and the trade along with the African continent. Also to handle it as per strategic level by make some kind of periodic interviews or dialogue with the representative of the member states in your organization, like EOS, for example, and to get the feedback from the national stakeholders about the content of this policy, and if there is a need or items need to be tackled or interpreted in a way that facilitate or make the easiness of implementation.
Thank you very much. And thank you to mention that the MSMEs are also included in the National Quality Council. I think there was also some question on that. That's how private sector can play their role in the implementation. Thank you a lot, and the awareness creation at the two levels, being technical, being the strategic level. For Bernardo, I would like, one of the questions that came out is how now, after this discussion, you have been working supporting ECOWAS and other member countries, African member Union member countries. How now do you see the way forward? Yeah, having now the Africa quality policy. Yeah, one question was how now the African countries can reform their quality policy.
Yeah, thank you, Hermogene. I think the question is quite straightforward. You have now, I would say you are in an ideal situation where we have national quality policies that are already, at least in some regions in Africa, aligned to a regional policy like in ECOWAS, which is also already following the international best practices and UNIDO guidelines. And then you have the African quality policy that has been adopted, that is now the overarching policy for the whole continent. So in terms of implementation, I would say it's relatively simple, as long as there is the political will and there is a drive by the government. And I mean, there is definitely. It's just about to map the countries and the regions that are still lacking behind, and to help them put together this policy. The principles are the same for everybody. You have a strong policy now, continental one, that can be directly declined at sub-regional and then national level. So it's about, I would say, more about finding the right partners and the development partners, mainly to help you roll out this plan, so that every country has finally a national policy that is aligned, and just the processes are there, the guiding documents are there, everything is really available for effective and quick work. And I would like to add also that following this trilogy of the policy documents, quality policy documents by UNIDO, there have been a surge of requests, a big increase of requests for for assistance, that there are many countries that actually have started implementing these guidelines, and there are in many regions of the world that people apply this methodology. So, and I was very happy to hear also from the colleagues here that indeed the UNIDO document has been a reference even for your work at Pan-African level. So for us, we are more than happy to respond to any request to support, at least technically. And if we find we identify the right financial partners, we can certainly work and making huge and quick progress on the quality policy development for the whole Africa. By the way, I'm just taking a few seconds also to tell you that just a few minutes ago, our new Director General, Mr. Müller, has taken office in UNIDO. You know that there is the general conference ongoing now in Vienna, and in a hybrid form. So we have now the elected new Director General on board, and with him, I'm sure that quality policy will be a topic of future dialogue and implementation.
Yeah. Congratulations to him. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, any last takeaway message? One.
From me.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, what is important beyond the adoption of policy following best practices is also their monitoring and implementation and reviewing after a while. You know, the first quality policies, for instance, in the West African region were adopted more than 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. So there's also time for reviewing them and again, follow this very inclusive process, consensual building process to ensure that these policies are revised and remain up to date. And of course, now the big opportunity to align them with the African quality policy is now so important to follow up, to implement, monitor the implementation, and of course, tremendously important is to find the means and the resources to implement the action plans, because policy is guiding, is giving principles, but we need also to help the countries, and especially the weakest countries, to implement the policy as well.
Thank you very much. To you, Barbara, I see some cross-cutting question, the involvement of private sector there. I also know that PTB has supported the public, but also supporting the private sector. Yeah. Barbara, do you think this is also a good way to go, supporting the private sector to understand the quality policy for a good or better implementation of quality policy? Dr. Barbara?
Well, that could be an easy question to say yes or no, but I think that would be a bit boring. Well, from PTB side, we usually do work less with the private sector and more with the public sector, and this is how our support is going on. But the question is about if I think it is important to get them on board, if you're talking about the policy and how to implement the policy. And I think that is quite important, because at the end, it's also services for and with the private sector. So if you really want to successfully implement the policy, or for national quality policy, involvement in any form of the private sector would be quite important, I think. So it would be a yes, I think.
Thank you.
And congratulations to Bernard for getting our Minister, Mr. Müller, as General Secretary now. We are going to miss him.
No, maybe more partnership, more money coming in. You never know. Yeah, it's a good opportunity.
We will strengthen our cooperation. Yeah, thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara, what is your takeaway message? One takeaway message.
Yes, I'm thinking a while about this now, and I think it would be quite the same as Chinyewa's takeaway message. I mean, we have the African quality policy now, and it's a milestone. And the task is now to implemented and to align the national quality policies with the African quality policy. That would be my take-home message as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we conclude, I just have 7 minutes. Before we conclude, Dr. Oswald Chinyamakov, you wanted to say something. Yeah.
Yes, Secretary General, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Thank you very much and congratulations for a fantastic workshop. Thank you for a fantastic lineup of speakers. And actually, I also want to acknowledge the fantastic questions and comments that came on the chat. I know that time will not allow for you to go through each and every one of them. Maybe we should challenge the Secretariat to collate them, and then working between the ASO Secretariat and our wonderful speakers, we can produce a flyer that will be shared with the participants, because I think the engagement and the comments coming there have been really good. I also wanted to acknowledge the efforts to already publicize the quality policy in the way that you've done. I want specifically to comment very quickly on the issue of alignment, which has been coming up a lot and is a very important one. And really, I rather positively foresee this not to be a big challenge. Why? Because as we've already heard from the West African angle, for example, a lot of the national policies there were based on the UNIDO documentation and also aligned to the ECOQUAL, which is the ECOWAS quality policy. In that regard, because the Africa quality policy also drew quite a lot from there, we've already got a bit of alignment. If you go to the other regions, whilst SADC, EAC, and COMESA might not have documented quality policy documents, they do have legal instruments that support quality infrastructure. And a lot of the national quality policies in those regions are aligned to those instruments. And as we saw during the development workshops for the quality policy, Africa quality policy, there was excellent representation from each of those regions. And indeed, the ideas they put forward were in support of the positions they already held. So I think we're in for an exciting journey ahead. And really, I believe that the most important thing we will now need to do is that whilst it's clear that the quality infrastructure pillars themselves will be getting support for efficient and effective functioning, we need now to connect that with the private sector so that industrialization, agribusiness, and trade is very well supported. And I think that angle is also going to be buttressed by the existence of the African Continental Free Trade Area, in particular Annex 6 on TBT. Thank you for the opportunity to share these brief comments, Secretary General, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Oswald. Thanking you. Before I close, just probably some key takeaway. One is that we should be mapping the countries without quality policy. That is a key recommendation. Secondly, circulate the policy, the quality policy, to different stakeholders, being technical stakeholders, being the private sector, being strategic partner for inclusiveness on the way forward, either at national level and toward the implementation of the quality policy. While we move from this third one is aligning the national quality policy to this Africa quality policy. That is very key. While we align this quality policy, national quality policy to Africa quality policy, we need to look at how we have a clear institutional framework, the structures that you have, the role and responsibility of those structures should be really clearly articulated to avoid overlap. We need also at national level, looking at the component of standard, we need to be looking at national standardization strategy. That also should be demand driven. The other key element was aligning the quality infrastructure to SDGs should be also part of what we discuss while developing the national quality policy. Quality policy should be also driven by a culture of quality in production, services, and personnel. All this aligned to the international best practice. The other key message takeaway is monitoring and evaluation. Monitoring and evaluation is very key, and the review of the quality policy should not be missed out while we are even aligning or developing our national quality policy. Last but not least, is very key to involve the private sector in the awareness creation for better implementation of this quality policy. I would like to thank all of you, our speakers, Dr. Barbara, Bernardo. I would like to thank you, Abia, Sadek. I would like to thank you, Chinyere, Dr. Bisom, for your participation and good insight. And I'd like to thank our we reached one time 150 participants. Otherwise, we would be talking to ourselves. I would like to thank you a lot for the whole year you have been with us in these webinars. In December, we will be putting on a list for our next year webinars to just give you the look of how we will be engaging with you once again in 2022. If I don't see you before the end of the year, I wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year for